Hi, I'm Lizanne, and I'm here to do session 2 of the Art of Letting Go. And this session is on stress relief. So, stress, I don't think we can live without. It's part of our lives, especially now during this time of pandemic. A lot of people are having a lot of extra stress. So, this session is going to be on stress relief, and sometimes people think making mandalas is stressful, but it's really not. And remember, things don't need to be perfect. You just do what you can and work with what you have and try to accept imperfection as something great. So we're going to start. So I'd like to start with the story of creation. So according to sacred geometry, so the spirit started by one point of creation, and it went from male to female, which is you can find in the Bible in the Genesis chapter, where it says that woman was created from a man's rib, a curved line. So after this one point, then Creator shot out in 6 directions: forward, backward, left, right, up, and down. And those are the directions that in my teachings, Native traditional teachings, that we pray in those directions. So then we are looking at the directions, cardinal directions: north, east, south, and west, above and below. So that's kind of a match to those beliefs. And then the lines started to connect to form a square and then a pyramid. Then the lines go down, forming an octahedron. From there, more movement. So the universe grew. So I'll show you a picture here. Hopefully you can see that. So we see those 2 circles. It's a bit hard to see. There's 2 circles. So we're going to start with one point when we create our mandala as well. So the spirit began to rotate on these axes, and then it started to turn. So in sacred geometry, things are turning. And then when you start your mandala, we're going to use the first building blocks of creation. So if you look at everything, trees, the leaves, human beings, fetuses, we all start with one point, and then it starts with 1 cell, then 2, then 3, then 4, then it expands. So the intersection point where the 2 circles meet is called the Vesica Piscis. So everything is created out of that, using that pattern of creation. So when we're talking about intersecting circles, I realize this is hard to see on the computer. So I'm just going to draw this for you. I'm going to use a marker so you can see it better. So then we're starting with one point, and we're going into a circle, and that's 1 cell, the first cell. And then this point will be the middle of the next circle. So it goes kind of like this. This intersecting part right here, that's the Vesica Piscis, and that's where everything's created out of. So your circles here and here. So this would be the start for a human being. We start with 2 cells in the womb, and then this intersecting point here becomes the middle of the next circle. So then it goes this way. and then this way, and so on. At every intersecting point is a new circle, and so on. And it keeps going that way. So, obviously, we're going to use tools to do that to make the circles perfectly round. But that is the idea. So this system has been known to man for a really long time. So in prehistoric, even you can find temples and mosques and different things with those patterns on it. So you start with the 1 point, 2 circles intersecting, and then you end up with the seed of life. So it's 7 circles that are intersecting. And then the egg of life, which is 6 more attached to that. And then 19 spheres. And then Metatron's cube, Metatron, which is the highest archangel, who's been removed from Old Testament. He's the bringer of light to the planet. And he has a symbol, and in his cube, there are 19 spheres. And then as you keep going bigger and bigger, adding more circles, it becomes the fruit of life. So it looks like this diagram here. So this is the 7. This is the 19. And this is Metatron's cube. These are the circles inside of Metatron's cube. So what's interesting I found is a lot of teachings, or every teaching is in Metatron's cube. So here's the circles here for Metatron's cube. And if you can see there's a turtle there. And that, in our tradition, is the where we live on Turtle Island, which is pretty cool. So inside of Metatron's cube is every geometric shape and the building blocks of life, and almost every belief system you can find their sacred symbols in the Metatron's cube, which is very interesting, very hard to draw. So, like I said, the fetus, it's the same idea. So you can see 1 cell, 2 cells, 7 cells, and it goes on, and then it starts to create life. It starts to create the fetus. So in sacred geometry, these shapes are repeated over and over inside your body. So you're just made of sacred geometry, basically. And in Metatron's cube is also the Merkaba, which is another interesting teaching. The Merkaba is our vehicle where our soul travels safely and returns back to us. So people who like to astral travel or lucid dream or meditate, they will use Merkaba to travel in. This here in the center is a Merkaba. So you have a field around your body, your spiritual body. So that's pretty neat. And then here they show the Merkaba field, which connects you. There's all your chakras, the field, and the earth, and it shows you how you're connected to the earth. So we're all very connected with the same shapes of creation that create our universe, that create us. We're just energy and sacred geometry, which is pretty cool. So Melchizedek is someone who specializes in sacred geometry, and he used to be a physicist. he left physics because during his studies, he became aware that there's no such thing as physics, and science couldn't prove how we're here. So he decided to study sacred geometry and became the founder, the specialist on sacred geometry. And when he was on his journey, he received the message, I am you, you are me. So when we look at that picture of the Merkaba and how we're connected to the earth and how we're all made of the same pattern, the same sacred geometry, that means that we're all connected. So it proves the fact that I am you, you're me. We're the same. We're connected. And I have a bit more about Metatron's cube. So these shapes, they appear everywhere, even in our DNA, which is very interesting. There's platonic solids here at the top. They're very old as well. You find them carved everywhere in all different cultures. So they say that Metatron is the bringer of light. He's the angel who came into being when God created the world. And some of the teachings describe him as the lesser Yahweh, so the second God, second to God. He transcended his physical body, so he was able to go from this dimension to Creator's dimension and back and forth. And the cube is also related to the tree of life in the Kabbalah with the 22 paths. And I can show you that here. This one here, this is the tree of life. And they say that that's related to our chakras also. It's pretty neat how everything is connected. And also these teachings are in Egyptian beliefs with the god Path, who is known as the opener. So if we can figure out how to take care of ourselves and our sacred geometry, that would be beneficial to all of our entire body, physical, spiritual, and emotional. There's also in sacred geometry the Fibonacci sequence, which you might see in shells and trees. So things that grow in spirally. And so there's a pattern to that. And it always grows at the same distance. So this is the Fibonacci. So the trees, some shells, plants that grow around. For example, the starfish. Here's some shells and some plants that grow that way. And if you measure the distance between them, it goes up the same amount all the way around till it gets bigger and bigger. The honeycomb, same idea. So the honeybees construct hexagonal cells to hold their honey. So they also know about sacred geometry. There's also a fractal system, which you find in the leaves, which is similar to our system of veins and arteries in our bodies. That's all a fractal system. They say that with trees, if you measure the roots under the ground, they will be the same as the branches, which is pretty interesting. As above, so below. People have heard that before. And they also grow in the same sequence. The other interesting thing about sacred geometry, I find, is crop circles. And there's different beliefs as to how they get there. Either our friends from outer space put them on the planet, or there's depressions in the earth which create those patterns, or somebody is playing pranks on people and goes around with a board tied to a string and flattens out all of the grass, surrounding grass. So who knows where they come from, but they are all in sacred geometry. And we have quite a few of them in Canada, in BC. I'd like to go and see them sometime, but you can see the circles. This one here is the fruit of life, and this one is that Fibonacci sequence. So you can see that those are all in sacred geometry. Yeah, so they're kind of unexplained. There's some in Alberta too, I hear. So we're talking about sacred geometry because we're going to make a mandala. So when we make a mandala, everything starts with circles. And circles are the first things that babies draw. That's the first thing that they draw usually. So it is something that we know about. And a lot of people like to work in circles. Circles are good because there's no hierarchy. It's just everybody's the same in a circle. And circles are powerful because it's an unbroken way that energy moves constantly around and around. And so when we talk about mandalas, the ones that we're going to make, mandalas kind of represent human struggle. So the Buddhists who make sand mandalas, different colors, they make huge mandalas that takes them days and days to make, and they'll be meditating on a certain situation, usually a tragedy or natural disaster or something like that on the earth, and they'll make this huge mandala and they'll pray on it, and they'll send energy through that mandala. And then when they're done with it, they just take it apart and start over. So it's human struggle of returning to self. So it brings balance. It's a reflection on yourself. So that's why I wanted to do mandalas for stress reduction, because it helps you connect with yourself. It's a good inner practice to connect with yourself and your cells and to think about all of these things that we just talked about. And if you look at the traditional native teachings, they use the medicine wheel. Here is the medicine wheel. And in there, they talk about the four bodies, the spiritual, mental, the physical, and the emotional body. And the center point is self. That is the teaching of medicine wheel. Same with mandala. So as you're making the mandala, your circle is big, things that are on the surface, things that have recently happened, and as you get closer to the center, there's yourself in the center. So it can help bring you to your inner child, which is why I like to use it. So mandalas have been used for prayer and meditation. So once you have a mandala made, you can meditate on it. And some people say when you look really long at sacred geometry and meditate on it, it starts to move and you start to see things. It's pretty neat. And if you like Carl Jung, mandalas show a constant interplay between circle and squares, and the circles represent wholeness, and the squares is a symbol of stability in the world. All humans desire full spiritual purpose that can be transferred to day-to-day activity. So he talks about how people are always looking for a reason why they're here, basically. A reason for being on the planet, especially at this time. Mandalas are used in therapy to represent wholeness of the person moving towards the center that can bring you closer to your inner child, which is what I just mentioned. You can't ask people to analyze your mandala. Some people will do that. They'll do courses and then they'll analyze your mandala for you. You would have to be working with mandalas for, I don't know, 30, 40 years before you can do something like that. So mandalas are very personal. And you're the one working on the mandala. Your thoughts, what you're working on in your mind, in your spirit, in your emotional body, it's you that can interpret your mandala better than anybody else. So I don't interpret them for people, but they can explain to me what their mandala means to them. So when you're doing a mandala, you're using therapy. So if you want to work through an issue, because your right and left brain are busy, so your left brain is working on the detail of building the mandala. So making the lines, using a ruler, all that stuff, trying to make it look good. So that way your right brain can be free of being able to work in your subconscious on issues that you want to work on. So that's working both sides of your brain, which is very important when you want to get some healing for yourself. And for the flower of life, there is one man named Charles Gilchrist who made those circles for 480 hours straight. It's beautiful. If you have time to look it up on the internet, you can find it online. And he said he got a lot of meditation done and a lot of things healed within himself by doing the mandalas. So what you need, we're going to start working on mandalas, and you can make any kind that you like. You can put anything in it that you like. You're going to need a few things. You're going to need a compass. I have one here. This one already has pencil in it, so it's pretty easy to use. It's got a little picky side to stick in my paper, and then I can make a circle with that. You're going to need some rulers. I got rulers. You're going to need some color, so some markers or some pencils, and an eraser in case you want to erase mistakes. And there's some suggested colors for mandalas. Like I said in the last video, I don't really believe in color coding things and color psychology, but I'm still going to mention anyways because some people like more guidance than less guidance. So let's say yellow. Yellow would be for the sun, passion, knowledge, and development, so spiritual development. So that's yellow. Then red could represent chaos. So you can use it to represent any chaos or trauma that you want to work on. But it can also represent passion and transformation. Lots of times violent transformation, like very quick transformation. Blue is relaxation and rebirth. And green will represent vegetation and hope. I think it's also very healing, this color. You can use any color you want, but anyways, those are some suggestions. So first thing you're going to need is a piece of paper. And here are some examples of some mandalas that you can start with. Pretty simple, but you can make any pattern you want. So the mandala has a repeating pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a paper. I'm going to try and move this computer down so you can see what I'm doing. Sorry, I'm not a camera specialist. Here we are. I have my table here. I'm just going to get down a little bit lower. I have my paper. And I have my compass. And I'm going to make a big circle. Try to put my compass in the center of the page. My compass is moving on me. Now this is where it gets people feel a little bit stressed because things aren't always perfect. I think I need a different compass. That one is not working right. Yeah, a different one here. This one you gotta unscrew. Well, at least it'll hold it in place. Okay, try this again. Take number 2. Well, that's much better. Okay, so look for an eraser. Erase these lines that I don't need. Okay, so I have my first point and my circle. So I'm going to make another circle around this one. A little bit bigger. Use the same point. And I'm going to make one smaller inside of that. Using the same point. And again, smaller. You don't have to do the same kind of mandala I'm doing. You can do any kind of mandala. So I have a bunch of circles inside each other. And now I'm going to try and think about what I want to do with that. I think I'll start with like a medicine wheel kind of idea. So I'm just going to make a cross inside of these circles. Start with that. looks like this. And then I think I'm gonna use triangles next. So what I did was go down here in the center and make a triangle down, and I'm going to do the same on the top. Sorry, my phone's ringing. Okay, so I'm going to do the same on the top. There we go. Sorry, that's my daughter. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do a couple of those circles that we were talking about, the intersecting circles. So what I did, let's wait for it to show. Here, I use this center point, this point here, to make the next circle. And there's the Vesica Piscis right here. And this is where they think things are created from. So it looks kind of like an eye. We have two Vesica Pisces, our eyes, and our third eye, actually. We have three. That's where creation comes from. And of course, women have extra one for birth. So this is where life comes from. So I made another circle here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another circle on the top and on the sides and make that egg of life. Okay, so there is one circle that I just made, the one on top and one on the side. So I'm using the intersecting marks to make the next circle. So here will be the same. I'll use the intersection mark to make the next circle. And I'll keep going around, and then pretty soon we're going to see a flower of life, which is pretty neat. There. So now in the center, you see that flower? That's the flower of life. So you can go on and on and on with that, just building circles at the intersection marks. And as you're doing that, you're just thinking about life in general. So I think I'm going to leave it like that, just for the purpose of this, showing you how to do this. Oh, we're already at 37 minutes. I think I'm going to join these two lines. See what happens. You can do whatever you want with it. You just keep adding to it as you think about things. But like I said, the straight lines that you have and squares represent stability. And the round lines or curved lines represent flexibility. Circles are more female energy. Squares are more masculine. So all I did was join these here, right here to the top. It kind of gives you almost like a diamond shape. And then all you have to do now is color it. So I'm gonna think about plants and life and growth. So I'm gonna make that, highlight that flower in green. And I think that I always still want to grow. I don't want to be stuck in my ways, or I always want to keep learning new things as much as I can. I think a lot of people get complacent and just plateau somewhere spiritually or emotionally. And I don't want that to happen to me. So I colored in my flower of life. And this kind of becomes like your own adult coloring page. Just keep adding and coloring, reflecting. Some people like it even just to clear your mind. And things don't have to be perfect. Just set good intention and, let yourself be guided. What kind of shapes you want to use. This is what it's starting to look like. Pretty interesting. As I'm drawing it, I'm thinking about how I started out new, growing, and here later on in my life is this red flower, still learning and growing, but that was a difficult period. Lots of traumatic and drastic changes and things that caused me to make better decisions, to reprioritize, to undo my old belief systems that I gained over here. So this is what I'm thinking about when I'm drawing and coloring this in. And maybe this diamond is like what I'll end up looking like after I'm all done, if I ever get done. And I'm putting the yellow around the red because I'm thinking about, spiritual development, things that I started to learn that surrounded me with light. All of those dark things I went through, I started to see them in a different way and use them to help others. So I've been through a lot. So I'm just going to pour that in. Kind of looks like the sun shining on that flower. Out of trauma and pain, there's also good things that come out of it. So it's starting to look like that. Could be a big sun in the middle of that diamond. So this is session 2 of 8 sessions. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you come up with some pretty neat creations. I wouldn't mind seeing them if you want to share them. So not perfect, but therapeutic. And the next session number 3, is going to be based on anger, but not getting rid of anger, because we need anger. It's a human emotion, and it's underneath that there's other emotions and things going on. So we're going to work with that at the next session. So just keep coloring your mandala, and make sure you have some space, sacred space, a nice area to work in. Don't forget to take care of yourselves. It's really important. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for the interruptions. I hope you have a great day. Make a wish.